Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm kicking off a new Mr. Haunted marathon for you guys. And the first video I'm reacting to today is 6 true subscriber horror stories, meaning that all these horror stories were randomly put together by Mr. Haunted by a few of his subscribers. And these stories don't have nothing in common. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
To give some explanation and background knowledge for this whole encounter, I was around 15 at the time when this occurred.
Okay.
I was camping out in the middle of nowhere with my family and part of my extended family, my aunt, uncle, and cousins. I was the oldest kid in the RV, so you could probably understand how it felt to have no one else to do stupid crap I did with back then. With a good 2-year gap between me and the inferiors, it was almost like Nirvana when I got to the campground and met other teenagers. These were all people we knew fairly well from previous camping trips, so it was considered normal to hit it off with them from the start and act like we've known each other forever within the hour.
Oh, that's cool that you hang out with other teenagers that you met at the campsite before. If you hit it off with them as friends, then you should be all right. But let's just see what happens next in the story, shall we?
Now, the story. My parents trusted me a lot, not a lie. I like my fun, but I like getting home in time for dinner equally as much. So when I was gone for most of the day with other people from the camp, they didn't think much of it. The only rule was that I had to be back at the RV to eat dinner before 8:30. So picture this, right? Group of 6 teenagers, 15 to 16, out in the middle of the woods with no adult supervision for the vast majority of the day. Just a recipe for success right there.
Sounds like it, basically, for you guys to just do whatever you want with no adult supervision. Sounds fun. But you just gotta be careful and not run into any dangerous animals' den, because then you'll be in really big trouble.
But this particular day, we found a neat little deer trail we hadn't found in the 2 years we had been there before. On second thought, though, it didn't really seem like a deer trail. It snaked through a really thick part of the underbrush, maybe about a foot, 30 centimeters off the clear ground, 1 meter, clear of branches going upwards. It's a really hard thing to pick out of the brush unless you either really looking or know where it is. It was promptly explored, marked with a broken branch outside of the entrance, and quickly forgotten. Except I remembered this special little tunnel. That night, while we were all eating dinner, one of the adults proposed that we played manhunt out in the woods at night. Not everyone was totally on board with this idea, but in the grand scheme of the plan, they were quashed down like autumn leaves. Everyone got a flashlight, and everyone was assigned to a team. For those of you who aren't sure what manhunt is, here's an explanation. Everyone playing is given a flashlight, and they are divided into 2 groups. It's basically like glorified flashlight tag, but there's a catch. As you catch people, you have to correctly identify who they are, and if you can, they join forces with the hunters.
Sounds like a cool, interesting game. Never played it, though.
The last man standing gets a candy bar or something like that, or whatever's being offered as the prize.
Oh, that's cool.
This is how we played it anyways. For the first round, I get lumped in with the runners, those who are getting chased by the hunters. We get a 5-minute head start to run, climb a tree, whatever the hell we wanted to do to evade the hunters. Usually, I'm the one up in the tree, but that never really worked out as being the winning spot. So, to try and score a win for once, I decided to play the cat and use one surefire method to escape. And the hiding spot was that rude little path through the thicket. It took most of the head start time to find the damn thing because it was so well hidden and out of the way. As I passed hiding spots, I heard hushed, smothered whispering between siblings who were questioning my actions, like a bird's wing rustling when it's fluffing itself. It should be noted that I have bad hearing. My ears are possibly my greatest asset in this game. But when I'm just reaching the destination, I hear a short blast of the air horn announcing that the 5 minutes are up. I swan wove into this little path on the undergrowth, shuffling on my hands and knees until I'm about halfway in, crouching down like some huge, mouth-horned quail. The hunters are doing an initial sweep through the trails, looking for obvious hiders and people caught out trying to change spots. When they finally reached me, they reached the dead end and went straight back. I try to readjust myself and crawl further down the tunnel. I honestly don't know how it happened, but I found an even more hidden pathway than that one, and accidentally I dragged my stupid body down that rabbit hole. Except instead of ending in a dead end, this one ended in a slight hollow. I don't ever want to describe exactly what I found there. I'm sorry, but I just can't.
Okay, that'd be scary for me to try to crawl through. I wouldn't even go into no big holes like that because you never know if you might hit a bottomless pit and you can't get out. And I can't even imagine what he found down there since he said he can't describe it. But let's continue.
It was a younger looking woman, naked, covered in lacerations and stab wounds in the fetal position. Her glassy glazed eyes seemed to look straight through me. I won't go any further than that. I was too scared to scream and froze while there in the dark. I froze there for what felt like hours, and then I heard someone else coming along the path. Have you ever been so scared for one moment, one insane moment, you truly consider something incredibly stupid as a viable option to escape? Yeah, that was one of those times for me.
Okay, it ain't no macabre scene of deer carcasses. It's actual woman naked. And you hear somebody walking around. Don't yell or scream.
I let out a short, trembling whimper and started moving. Whoever was on the path stopped, and they eagerly started to move forward again. I could hear their panting, uneven breaths from a man, a horrible marker of whoever it was getting closer and closer to me by the second. By some wondrous, beautiful miracle, he missed the path leading to the brushy hollow. I heard him moving down past the entrance, dragging something clunky and awkward behind him. I heard clinking noises and the occasional effort to silence the small, sharp noises. I heard a low curse, somewhat towards the end of the tunnel, and I blasted out of the undergrowth tunnel like a bullet forcing its way out of the barrel. Cracks and crashes and obnoxious rustling was all around me as I heard the man sharply intake a breath and begin to move towards me. Somehow, I exploded out of the entrance, got onto my wobbly, half-asleep legs, and started booking it down the trail. The unknown pursuer was close behind me for a bit, but it seemed like he was too exhausted to chase me at the same speed for long. I know everyone loves to rip on the fact that people always trip in horror movies, but in all honesty, tripping is something that I am amazed I didn't do. It felt like an eternity, but I finally reached the main trail, running back to the camp, and sprinted down it, screaming bloody murder. Confused faces looked from out the trees, and I think someone called after me. Reaching the camp was easy, but trying to explain why I woke up half the people in the camp and bolted out of the woods at breakneck speed was harder. When I finally choked the words out to explain, I remember a profound, insidious silence throughout the group of adults waiting at the mouth of the trail. I really don't remember a whole lot from that point on. All I do know was that the cops were called and my mother and aunt ran shrieking and wailing along the trail, calling for each other's kids to come back to safety. When someone's yelling like that, you don't ignore it. They rounded everyone up within 30 seconds flat and barreled back into the camp. The police found a man out in the woods, creeping along the trail, clutching a knife. A black garbage bag with a plethora of sharp instruments and a saw was found abandoned on the trail, some speckled and smeared with dried blood. I don't think there's really any getting over it. I still have nightmares sometimes of the man chasing me, breathing heavily down the back of my neck trying to catch me. Sometimes he succeeds.
You see, you think that you're in a nice, quiet, solitude place and you're just having fun, but all of a sudden there has to be somebody creepy and terrifying out in these areas and ruin everything that was fun about the place. But thank God you were able to outrun that dude because if you didn't, you probably would have been the next victim besides that naked woman. But thankfully, they called the cops and the cops found that dude before he decided to clean up everything and leave. But that is really creepy.
In 2006 or 2007, when I was around 8 or 9 years old, I experienced something quite strange. I had never really seen anything that could be considered creepy at my house, but one night I certainly did. It was around midnight when I happened to wake up. This is pretty common in a lot of people, so I thought nothing of it and I was getting ready to go back to sleep. As usual, my bedroom door was open with the hall light turned on, and that's when I saw it. An abnormally tall, dark, faceless black figure in the corner of my room. It was looking down at me, staying quiet and still the entire time. I didn't really know what to think of it. Oddly enough, I didn't feel scared. I was merely wondering, what is this thing? The tall figure continued to stand there, still staring at me. I knew that I wasn't expecting sleep paralysis as I could move, yet this seemed too far real to be a dream. I decided to slowly turn around and face the wall instead. I covered myself with the blankets and closed my eyes. I don't know what the tall figure did after that, if it even left or not, but the next thing I knew, it was morning. I decided against telling my parents about what I'd seen. They're pretty hardcore Christians, and I honestly did not want to freak them out. Yet, I eventually did decide to tell at least my mother about it. When I had told her about what I had seen, she luckily did not freak out. Instead, she told me that she too had seen a very similar, if not the same figure, except her encounter was quite different and much more disturbing from mine. According to my mother, the dark, tall figure also appeared in her room in the middle of the night. My father remained asleep next to her. Suddenly, the tall figure lunged itself at my mother and began to choke her. She was able to repent in the name of Jesus Christ a couple times, when the dark figure finally backed away and disappeared. It was only then that my father woke up, but he still had no idea what just happened. My mother then told me the reason I had not been attacked is because supposedly demons, as she thought this is what the figure was, do not attack children. Personally, I see it as a bad omen. Some terrible things had happened to me over the years, and after that appearance of the dark figure, but I have since recovered and have a lot of support. I'm 20 years old now, and I still live in the same house, yet I have never experienced anything like that ever since. I can only wonder what the tall dark figure was thinking as it stared at me on that night.
At first I was going to say I agree. Don't tell your parents because they'll freak out if they're really true Christians. But I'm glad he told his mom at least because she witnessed it trying to choke her. But luckily, when she started saying repent in the Lord's name, it just let go of her. And luckily, it didn't attack him. And she thinks that they don't attack children. I'll be like, you never know nowadays. I mean, if the kids acted all bratty or mean to someone else, then they probably might. Or a demon just wants to do it out of hatred. You always got to be careful around them things, but I'm glad that this demon didn't attack him. So let's get on to story number 3.
When I was a little kid, maybe around the ages of 8 or 9, something happened to me that I still can't describe till this day. I lived in a very rural area of New Hampshire, in the country you could say. There were no stores or buildings or anything like that for miles, so my family and I were pretty isolated for the most part. We lived in a two-storied house that was built back in the 50s, and I found it somewhat creepy for me. I'd also like to mention that our house is completely surrounded by forest in all directions, and that only adds on to the creepiness. One day, I got home from school and sat down on my bed and did some homework. My dad was at work and my mom was doing errands, so I had the house to myself for a few hours. After I did all my homework, I decided to lay on my bed and play some video games to keep myself occupied till my parents got home.
First of all, the whole atmosphere he was describing in a rural area, hardly no grocery store for miles, sounds like a nice place to get away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, because it seemed like out there you don't have to worry about that much. But there's a disadvantage to living in rural areas like this. If you were in trouble by somebody attacking you or breaking in to steal stuff from your house, it would take a long time for police to get there, probably. But anyway, let's continue with this story and see what happens next, shall we?
I felt somewhat relaxed for some reason, and after a while, I paused my game and started to drift off into a deep sleep. I woke up around an hour later and realized that it was about 6 p.m. and the sun was starting to set. However, I then heard something very faint. I was still tired and started to wake myself up. I then heard it again, and this time it was more clear. It was a voice that was calling my name. It only took me about 3 seconds to realize that it was the voice of my dad calling my name. I walked over to the kitchen where I heard him, but I found nobody. Then it hit me like a brick. My parents were not home. I figured that they must have came home early and kept looking for my dad. I kept saying things like, "Dad? Dad, where are you?" His voice then came from outside. I looked out of my window, and there at the tree line was a dark figure. I picked up my phone and called my mom and told her why my dad was standing outside in the backyard calling my name. There was a brief pause before she answered, what are you talking about? I just picked him up from work and we're on our way home." My blood ran cold, and I saw the figure run back into the woods, never to be seen again. I hung up the phone and locked my door and hid under my covers, and thankfully nothing happened. I had told my parents about it, but they just started lecturing me about how I was just my imagination and that I wasn't getting enough sleep. However, I knew that it wasn't me, and I knew that I witnessed something that evening. I don't know what I encountered. I don't know if it was some sort of entity, someone playing a prank on me, a hallucination, or something else. But I still wonder if it was really all in my head, and that figure that I saw that day wasn't really there.
Those are some good questions because I don't know what to tell you. If he said he was just waking up, it'll probably be like a little bit of like a sleep inertia still kicking in, and he was just imagining his dad calling him and seeing that figure outside. But the parents should not have to be so rude, saying that you're just making all this up. Nothing was out there. He knows what he saw. You should believe him, at least.
So, this is a true story that happened to my mom's friend in Korea about 10 years ago. Every time I hear the story, I still get the chills. My mom's friend lived in an apartment complex in Seoul, South Korea. She was a stay at home mother with a young daughter, and her husband worked during the days. One day, she was coming home from running errands with her daughter and got onto the elevator in her building. When she got on, she noticed that there was a man wearing a cap and a yellow raincoat and kept his head low so that she couldn't really see his face. She immediately felt really uneasy, and she made her daughter stand to her side, furthest away from the man. What made her feel even more uncomfortable was that when she pressed the button to her floor, there was no other lit number. And on top of that, she noticed that he was carrying something wrapped inside newspaper close to his side. Things started to click in my mom's friend's head, and she started to panic and decided to take out her cell phone and pretended she was calling home to her husband, who was obviously really not at home and at work. She started saying things like, "Oh, I'm on the elevator and about to get off. Can you get the door for me?" And making it seem like her husband was waiting at home. When the elevator did reach her floor, I think she lived on the 12th floor or something, she quickly got off and grabbed her daughter and started to walk fast as she could to her apartment. She noticed that the man also got off on her floor and was slowly following her down the hallway.
Yeah, I knew it. She did not see him have a button pushed on the elevator. It's just her floor. He was just waiting for somebody to get on that elevator just so he can probably ambush him on whatever level they were at. And he's probably got a weapon wrapped up in newspaper, like a knife or gun, trying to hide it. You better hurry up and get that door open and get in before he lunges at you. Very creepy.
When my mom's friend got to her door, she started to bang on it and shout, "Hey, dear, I'm home. Please open the door," and kind of pretended like he was coming to answer the door. Upon seeing this, the man in the yellow raincoat started to walk back towards the elevator. When he seemed to be far away enough, my mom's friend quickly picked up her daughter and slid open the door's passcode thingy. This is usually how people get into their homes in Korea, and started to frantically punch in her key code. But the problem was that the buttons would make sound, so the man knew that no one was going to answer the door for her, and he then turned around and started to run back towards her. My mom's friend at this point was practically screaming, and when she finally got open the door, the first thing she did was throw her daughter in through the door. When she got in herself, she saw that the man was pretty much inches away from the door, but she managed to shut it and lock it before he could wedge his hand or a weapon into the door. Afterwards, looking through the door's peephole, she saw that the man was walking away back towards the elevator. Several months later, my mom was watching the news, and there was a coverage on the capture of a serial killer named Yu Young Cho, who used to kill a lot of prostitutes. She told my mom that she could never forget the dread she felt when she saw the too familiar yellow raincoat and hat that he was wearing when apprehended.
Holy Gelito. Turned out it was a serial killer after all. That went after prostitutes. She wasn't no prostitute. She was a mom that was just getting groceries with her daughter. I don't know why this guy would decide to pick her to go try and attack unless he didn't care anymore. He would just kill any women. Thank God she did the right thing and throw her daughter inside first and then get in and close the door and locked it before that guy decided to put his weapon or hand in the door to stop her from closing all the way, because she would have been his next victim. But thank God the cops arrested him.
It was April 24th, 2018. It was the final class of the school day, and my 9 other classmates and I were getting impatient in our seats, waiting for the final bell to ring, signaling us that we could finally go home after a long, painful Tuesday. I stared at the clock at the front of the classroom above the whiteboard on the wall, and then towards the door, tapping on my foot because of boredom.
Hey, I agree with what he was saying, because any day of a school week, you'd be like, man, we got done with the assignments. Can we just go to next classes and then go home? Sometimes I felt like I didn't want to be there because, there was always those kids that wanted to tease you all the time, or the schoolwork was just too hard to know, or if you had a serious test coming up, worrying about failing. You would think now that, yes, you'll want to leave school quickly, but just think about it. You get through school and graduate, you don't have to worry about it no more.
I asked my teacher if me and my friend, let's call her Alyssa, could go film outside for a project we were working on. He agreed because he was a very laid-back teacher, so Alyssa and I left the classroom and started to walk outside. Alyssa had to go to the bathroom, so she told me to just wait on her until she got out. Alyssa walked towards the bathroom, and I walked to the counselor's office so I could wait patiently for her. At the time, I didn't have a phone, so I waited by staring off into space and thinking about all the upcoming projects I had to do. I then heard someone by the counselor's door, so I walked towards it and opened it. My principal was standing there looking frantic and petrified. She told me, "You need to go to your classroom right now." I listened and got caught up in the moment, running back to the classroom, and I totally forgot about Alyssa. Just as I opened the door and half of my body was in the classroom, I heard that painful sound on the loudspeaker saying, "This school has been placed on lockdown. Please follow lockdown procedures." It rang in my ears as my body tensed up, and I stared at the classmates practically jumping out of their desks. I closed the door and ran for the corner. My teacher told us to get against the wall and huddle together. Now, I had a small class, but it was still a challenge to fit 10 people in the corner of the classroom, so we were sort of scooted in the line of the wall.
Oh, believe me, I remember them days when I had to hide in areas with my fellow classmates. And when you're in a regular classroom, you always got to huddle together. But when you're in like classes for construction, automotive, we had to hide in different spots. Sometimes in a big closet that's in the room, or for instance, the automotive shop had a bathroom, so we were able to all hide. But you always take it seriously.
Just then, I heard someone open the door, but it was only Alyssa. This is a drill, I thought to myself. But as soon as 5 minutes faded into 10 and eventually into 50, I knew it was not. I sat against a wall, terrified for what to come next for me and my peers. Was my brother safe? My best friends? My enemies? That's all I could think about for those 45 minutes. At about the 45-minute mark of the lockdown, I heard sirens and I saw a cop car speeding by through a window, and my 6th grade self felt a bit safe. I went to my next class, but all anyone could think about was talk about the lockdown. I learned eventually from my brother that a senior had entered the campus with a gun and planned to shoot up the entire middle school. No one was injured, but the senior was obviously arrested and is getting the proper help that he needs.
That's scary to think about. They said it was a senior. Must have lost it in the mind, but thankfully they said he's getting the help he needs.
This happened about a year ago. I live in the Middle East in a country named Oman, which is not very popular. It has a lot of places that are pretty much rural and great for picnics. My two friends, Isaiah and Marwan, and I are college students that live in the city. We used to drive about 40 minutes to our usual rural spot with our picnic chairs and just sit there with snacks and cigarettes and chat until about 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. On a Friday night, we agreed to do the same as we do every Friday, and we decided to head over to that specific place. It's a rural area between mountains and it's pretty much empty. We reached and we got our belongings out of the cars and we were walking to our usual spot, which takes about 2 minutes. Keep in mind that the place is very quiet and would be very easy to hear something from a long distance. As we were about to reach, I heard a sharp, short scream that startled me a bit. I didn't say anything as I thought my mind was just playing tricks on me. We continued walking a few steps more and I then heard it again. This time, I stopped walking and shushed Marwan and Isa, and they both went quiet and were staring between the mountains, which is a bit of a dark area. The scream sounded like a man, but with a higher pitched voice, and that has been smoking for a long time. Wait, what? I don't hear anything, said Isa. At that point, I was very confused and a little creeped out. I could have sworn I heard something, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. I looked at Marwan, and I still remember his facial expression till this day. He was frozen, and his eyes were wide open, staring straight ahead. I looked to where Marwan was looking, and there it was. It looked like a white shape at first, which I thought it wasn't until it did move. Isa took a few seconds more until he noticed as well. What the hell is that? Said Marwan. I didn't know. We were still frozen in fear, staring at the white thing. In about 15 seconds, I noticed that it was getting closer and that I could see what it looked like a human being in a long white dress with long black hair swinging left and right every time it took a step. We didn't know what to do as we were still gazing at it and started shivering. A few seconds later, it really started to get close, and I now noticed that it was limping. So you could imagine how scary it was to see a limping person, or God knows what it was, that was coming straight towards you so fast that even if you have a normal person was running, it wouldn't have the same speed as that thing did. It let out another scream, but this time, it was very loud. I looked at both of them and said, "Let's get the hell out of here." We ran to our cars and we started our engines and floored it. Marwan and Isa were in front of me, and I decided to look in my rearview mirror, and there it was, a few meters away from the car, and it was limping towards us really fast until I lost it. We ended up making it back to civilization, and we were just wondering what the hell we just saw. None of us could have come up with an explanation, and none of us believed that it was an actual human being. I couldn't imagine what would have happened to us if we didn't hear it scream. Just thinking about it makes me shiver. I will never forget what I saw, and I'm just glad that we got out of there just in time.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys got out of there because the way you were describing this entity was demonic and disguised itself as like an innocent person in a white dress. But if it starts coming towards you, I would have been running too. Whew, that's a tale that really gives shivers up your spine. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Mr. Haunted content like this. This has been another successful song on the Tin Man Sport channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and that's a wrap, and that's Dago.